more and more I go into different areas of knowledge, of Gnostic text, of esoteric, of occult, of scientific, that I really don't know anything at all. These paradoxes are the ones that get me every single time. I know them. I think a lot of you may know these, but the reality of practicing these, integrating these into your daily life, into your daily social situations, therein lies the challenge. So number one, the more you try to make people like you, the less likely they will. I'll be transparent and say that this is something that I tend to fall into, especially if I want to make a relationship, if I want to connect with people, make new friends, make new business arrangements as well, so you can start to parlay between those parties in a latter time. But I think I'm certainly not alone in admitting that. The idea that comes to mind when I'm thinking about that particular paradox is not just with people, but bringing things into your life. There's something that is very unique, very subtle, and synchronistic about the world, the universe, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, in terms of the energetic state you are carrying. And this particular paradox stems from a state of not having. Some people might even call it chasing. You're chasing something outside of you because there's a sense of incompleteness within yourself as a person. And you project that state of incompleteness out to other people when you are chasing them. And the irony is, you don't attract people, you actually repel people. There is therefore a delicate balance you have to play in terms of introducing yourself, perhaps sharing mutual interests, sharing morals, sharing values, sharing virtues, but not to a point where you become over cumbersome. An initial interaction, a social interaction, is a dance. There's a give and there is a take. And many people can stray on the latter end of that spectrum, the taking. Usually for me, that presents itself in a conversation where people are constantly asking you questions and trying to get information out of you. Information is currency. Information is very, very valuable, and you should be very particular in the kinds of questions you're asking and the frequency in which you're asking that question. In more recent times for me, I try to strike the balance between being whimsical, playful, light, adding levity in the conversation, and perhaps asking questions that may pertain to a particular value transaction. What business are you in? How do you perform that particular business? What is the system you're using to achieve your particular outcomes? Nothing is given for free. You're always trading something, but some people don't have the presence of minds to recognize. The more they try to do that, and perhaps even try to project their likeness onto somebody else, that they rarely succeed. The second one, another really difficult paradox to become commensurate with your daily living, is the more you fail, the more likely you are to succeed. I'll tell you a little story about myself. Many, many years ago, I used to be a door-to-door salesman. I wouldn't say many years, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I used to do door-to-door sales. I used to knock on people's doors, strangers' doors, and try to sell them electricity and gas packages here in the UK. And I knew for me to make 2 sales, or let's go with the 2 sales. For me to make 2 sales, I needed to knock on 100 doors. Can you imagine that? I knew I needed to have 98 people telling me to insert your favorite pejorative there, to get lost, right? Just for me to make 2 sales. And for the first week, the first month, that was so crippling for me because it was failure after failure after failure after failure after failure after failure after failure until you find the right conditions to make the sale. Now, that was a bare minimum. Not saying that, you couldn't knock on 100 doors and make 7 sales or 8 sales. But for me, that was the minimum number I had to hit every single day to put food on my table, to keep the lights on in my home. If there's one word that I think can make this particular paradox even more concise, it's the principle of consistency or compounding. So consistency or compounding. It is remarkable to me how quickly people give up on things. Not a lot of people would tolerate that, by the way. Would you knock on 100 strangers' doors knowing that 98 of them would tell you to get lost, only for 2 of them to actually, make that sale? If we're being honest, the answer is no. And I didn't enjoy the job, and I moved on from it very, very quickly because of that. But I knew during that period of time that was very character building for me to go through the trials and tribulations of those failures in order to get that win. And I've been guilty of this in the past where I've started a project. I used to do like Forex trading. I thought I was going to be a Forex trader, right? Got all the books, got all the kit, all the gear, got all the the equipment you needed to do it, and I lasted about a month. The continuity, the consistency, and the compounding effect is the reason people succeed. You can only fail if you quit. I'm a firm believer of that. Number 3, the more something scares you, the more likely you should consider doing it. 100%. And a more psychological term, or maybe a more spiritual lens to view this through, is your mind is kind of a predicting tool. Your rational mind predicts things based on previous history. And one of the reasons it gets scared is because it doesn't have a reference point for the future behavior. So typically the thing that you're fearing to do is only so because you have no prior experience with it. The analogy I like to give is, imagine if you're a pilot and you've got the plane on autopilot, things are comfortable, things are easy. Maybe you've got your navigation system, but if you turn the autopilot off, you turn the navigation system off, it's just you being present with a new experience, the new landscape that you are traversing. Very, very scary, because where are your reference points? I don't know the behavior that is appropriate in this context, but that is the zone in which you grow. So you have that comfort zone, you have the uncomfortable zone, which is scary, and the area where you get access to dormant areas of your brain and you start growing in that way. Another way to think about it, I think Jordan Peterson mentioned this, which is a crazy phrase. Think about this phrase, is there is a lot of potential you in the areas that you're scared to uncover. There's a lot of potential you in those areas that you can unlock. So you're unlocking different parts of your body, of your mind, when you go into the areas that scare you. Number 4, the more you hate a trait in other people, the more likely you are to be avoiding that trait in yourself. This is classic psychology 101 projection. Typically, if something is emotionally compromising you, it is an indication that you are ignoring something in yourself. One of the ones that I used to struggle with is lust, and people being very lustful. And I recognized that was a reflection of my inner state, because I was always in a desirous state. I was always in a state of not having, of wanting, of incompleteness. Number 5, the more connected we become with the world, the more isolated we seem to feel. I'm not going to go into that too much. I think with the digital landscape, you can make that assumption very, very easily. I know for me that physical connections with people, meeting people, doing social things is very, very important for holistic health. I don't believe that an online relationship with individuals across the world are commensurate with feeling connected. You typically feel connected when you're in somebody's heart electromagnetic field. Your heart actually has a magnetic field, which is even larger than the brain. It's actually the largest electromagnetic field that you have within the body. And there is love in that way, you can argue, could be measured, and it has a physiological, biological, spiritual effect, mental effect on your person. 6, you can only have a happy relationship if you are happy being by yourself. I love this one. I think so many people, especially women, do not understand this. Many people use other people as a crutch for their happiness. If you're entering into a relationship because you are unhappy with yourself, the breakup, which is inevitable after this, will be devastating, will cripple you. You might not survive. Honestly, I've been in that situation before where I put all of my happiness on the other person. And this was many, many years ago, my first girlfriend. And I'm sure the first heartbreak you gentlemen have that's the cut that goes deepest. And that one, she cheated on me twice. And that was a long recovery period for me, because I'd put all my happiness on that individual. I was solely dependent on my sense of well-being because of this individual. And the recourse from that took minimum a year, maybe more. Classic mistake. If you're not centered in a good place in your life, if you can't lead yourself in a relationship, you're taking on another responsibility of somebody else, of being an aspect of somebody else's happiness. And if you don't have your house in order, as Jordan Peterson would say, then supporting another house is going to be very, very frivolous. Number 7, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. I completely agree. The phrase coming to mind is always the student, never the teacher. And this is something that I believe I do the best out of all of these. Is I recognize the more and more I go into different areas of knowledge, of Gnostic text, of esoteric, of occult, of scientific, that I really don't know anything at all. And I start to rely on my intuition and anecdotal experiences that allow me to navigate my life with more accuracy, more holistic well-being. I'm interested to hear from you guys which one this particularly pertains to, which one you do well, which one you have some difficulty with. For me, it's definitely 7. I do the best. And I think perhaps number 6 I'm also commensurate with. Number 1 is the one that's kind of speaking to my soul about, you may have some development to do there, Joseph. But these aren't theories. These are facts. Speak soon.